Hey everybody, welcome back to the Senators Roundtable. I'm your host Jacob Billington, joined by Matthew Zator today. This is your first time on the show. It's you're usually behind the scenes, but happy to have you here. We're a little short man today, but that's okay. How you doing?
Doing good. Draft is just around the corner, and we've got a few really good trades that have happened. So yeah, lots of fun as we enter July here.
Yeah, and we've been pumping out the draft content on the YouTube channel. So while you're here, make sure to go check that out. But speaking of the trades, the Ottawa Senators, right before Game 7, dropped a massive trade. And I wonder if dropping this right ahead of Game 7 is Michael Andlauer getting a little bit of payback for the Evgeny Dadonov and Shane Pinto situations. But the trade was the Ottawa Senators acquiring Linus Ullmark, goaltender from the Boston Bruins, for Jonas Korpisalo, 25% retained, Mark Kastelik, and the 25th overall draft pick in this year's draft. Bruins fans have a reason to be upset right now. It's a year ago, the day that this is coming out. It's a year ago to the day that Ullmark won the Vezina Trophy. As we're recording this, he's the current reigning Vezina Trophy winner. That's a pretty underwhelming return. It's a fleece for Ottawa, in my opinion. What do you think of the trade, Matthew?
I agree. I mean, I thought you guys talked about it that Korpisalo, there's no way he's being in these trades. No one's going to want that contract. No one's going to want him. Well, the Bruins apparently do. So I don't understand why Chychrun wasn't part of this trade. I mean, I thought that's what was going to take. That's what it was going to take. Yeah, first round pick, but it's a late first round. I mean, you're going to get a pretty good prospect there, but and Castelik's a good bottom six guy. He's a good third, fourth line player that probably would fit in really well in Boston. But overall, I mean, the Bruins didn't really get a lot for arguably their could potential saying that they're starting goalie, their 1A, 1B, whatever you want to call them. I That's a pretty underwhelming return. I do agree. I would be pretty angry if I was a Bruins fan too, saying, well, this is what we got for him. Yeah, not too bad. Not too good, at least for me.
Well, and you look at the needs that Boston needed from this trade, it was to free up cap space. It was to get somebody to help the NHL roster now, more than Ulmark can do, because you have Jeremy Swayman. You don't need Linus Ulmark, and that's totally fine.
Hmm.
They didn't do either of those things. Mark Kastelik is not a needle mover. He's going to be a 12th, 13th forward for the Bruins. He, he is a Bruin. Like the way he plays hockey, he belongs with the Boston Bruins. And then you don't free up any cap space because you got Corpusalo at 3 million, and then
Yeah.
Kastelik at over 800,000. So you're freeing up $1.1 million, and that's not doing anything for you. If you're bringing back Jakob Chychrun in the trade, then sure, you can deal with no money movement because you're getting a huge upgrade on your roster. I fully expected it to be Jakob Chychrun and 25th overall. And even then, I don't know if Corpusalo would be part of that trade. That's what I fully expected. So definitely happy from an Ottawa side of things. You dump the contract. Like the price to dump the Jonas Corpusalo contract was probably quite high, even at 25% retained, because it's still 4 more years, and he had an 890 save percentage, one of the
Yeah.
worst in the NHL last year. I don't know how Steve Staios pulled that off.
I really don't either. I mean, the thing is yeah, Corpusalo could be better in Boston, but, obviously a way better defense in front of him, and a way better system. But I don't know, taking that much term. I mean, the money, yeah, but that other 3 years, I mean, you're stuck with them. I mean, I don't know if the Bruins are gonna be able to move him, unless they buy him out down the line or something like that. But or he turns it around and becomes a really good 1B to Swayman. Obviously, Swayman's a starter. I mean, there's not going to be the same type of split. But I mean, if he can be an adequate backup, I guess, but that's a pretty expensive backup, in my opinion. So
Yeah,
I don't get it, really. I don't.
and he's gonna be better because he can't be worse.
No,
Like,
that's right.
he can't be worse than the worst goalie in the league. And so going to Boston, he's 100% going to be a better goaltender. I expect him to be around a 900 save percentage, about an even win loss ratio. But like, why do you bring him on? You got Brandon Bussi. He's more than capable of being the backup. Like, I don't understand. They didn't have the leverage to make a deal, or sorry, they did have the leverage because they didn't need to move Ullmark. They could have been more than happy to stick with Ullmark for 1 year rather than 4 years of Korpisalo with $3 million. Like, I would rather let Ullmark walk in free agency
Yeah.
than that. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. But again, for the Ottawa side of things, couldn't be happier to see it.
Oh, I love it for the Senators. I mean, Allmark's a legitimate number one. He can play. The thing is, I think the biggest thing is the Senators have to be way better in front of him. I mean, it's the thing is yeah, he's a great goaltender, but we've seen in the past great goaltenders become bad on teams that just give up tons of high danger chances. And I was like, why aren't they playing very well? Well, there's the reason. I mean, Talbot going to LA, he looks great. And then in Ottawa, it didn't look very good. I mean,
Yeah.
Ullmark could suffer the same fate. Arguably, he's a way better goaltender, I think, than Talbot. So, I mean, I think in that sense, but I think, like you guys talked about it, this is not the biggest problem that the Senators have. Yes, it's one of them, but they got to be way better defensively if they're going to have a chance, even with Ullmark in that.
Yeah. I think the biggest stat that jumps out to me that this trade had to happen was the fact that 22 times in the 2023-24 season, the Ottawa Senators allowed a goal on the first two shots of the game. That's not a system issue. That's a goaltending issue.
True. Yeah.
That's kind of the biggest rebuttal to that argument, I think. You just like first two shots of the game and you're already down. That just can't happen. And we saw it with the Oilers in the playoffs. They allowed that a handful of times and it bit them quite a few times. So, yeah, it's goaltending certainly needed a massive upgrade, but you're right. They do still need to fix the defense. They need to fix the team defense, and hopefully Travis Green can kind of instill some of that in them. He didn't do that in Vancouver, but hopefully he's grown a little bit since. But yeah, it's a team effort, but goaltending needed to be a change.
Yeah, well, I agree. Like this is a massive upgrade from Korpisalo, massive upgrade from Talbot. It's probably back to where they'll peak Craig Anderson. I mean, this is probably what you're looking at with Ullmark. He is a younger goaltender, so he's going to be here longer. You're hoping that an extension can be done with him because, yeah, he's got that one more year. You better have the. I was hoping that there was going to be an extension involved in the trade because then you have a bit more security. But the fact that, I mean, there's been, like you said, conflicting reports that he did waive his no trade or he didn't waive his no trade. So did he want to be here? We'll have to just see if he signs a long term. I mean, that's answered, but I think that's the biggest question now is that he's got to be extended because this trade can't be just for 1 year.
Yeah, he's ineligible for an extension right now. He can't sign until July 1st. So a lot of people are up in arms about that, about how there's no extension, but he physically cannot sign when there might be a handshake deal in place. What do you think would be a good extension for him? In my mind, it's 5 years, $7 million. Would you be happy to give him that?
I mean, that's a ballpark of where he probably would fall. I mean, goaltenders right now, as for a starter, you're gonna have to pay at least that. You're looking at like Thatcher Demko. I think he's at a 6 million. He's a really budget though. I mean, it's probably one of the more budget friendly goaltending contracts for a starter. But I think 7 million is probably a good number. And I think he probably would sign something at that. I think he would probably sign like that in Boston if he was the main starter there. So yeah, I like that. I like that 7 million number.
Yeah, and the 5 years is going to take him until he's 35, 36, and that's a good age to sign a goaltender until, because then another 2 year deal after that makes sense because goalies usually run a little bit longer than skaters do. So just looking at some of the historical numbers of Ottawa Senators goaltenders, I don't think that there is a goalie that Ottawa has ever had to this pedigree. Like Dominic Hasek was 41 when he came. You can argue that. He still had a 925 save percentage in half the season. Ron Tugnutt had a 925 year. Craig Anderson did have one 926 year and a 923. But number 7 on the list is Anton Forsberg. Like Ottawa has historically not have had good goalies. Career wise, based on the age, I don't think there's been a better acquisition than Linus Ullmark on paper, at least. Obviously, that could blow up in my face very quickly saying that. But Craig Anderson was 30 years old when Ottawa acquired him, so it's more than possible to see Linus Ullmark have a very good career in Ottawa.
One thing about Allmark, I think he's in that prime years right now for a goaltender, and I think this is probably the best time to get him. And that he's established himself in the league. He probably has quite a few years still of being a really good goalie. And if he can play at the same level he was in Boston, you're hoping that I'm sure everyone's hoping that he plays to the Vezina Trophy caliber like he did last season, because that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But I mean, just being good, I think that's just all the Senators need, is just make the saves that you're supposed to. You don't have to be amazing, and just make saves. I think that's what all Ottawa needs right now.
Yeah, Olmark's career he's played in parts of 9 seasons, and he only has 1 season with save percentage lower than a 913. If Ottawa is getting a 910 save percentage out of him, they're laughing. They're in a much better position than they were last year.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and now Forsberg will be the backup. That's a good tandem, I think. And now, because you got rid of Korpisalo, that problem's solved. Because everyone, we're talking about, bring in a goaltender. Well, you still have Korpisalo. What are you going to do with Forsberg? Well, now it's a good tandem there, and Forsberg can be an adequate backup. He's shown that he can be. That's a good tandem now.
Yeah, it's a fantastic tandem. And again, Anton Forsberg, he had a 917 season in Ottawa, and he has not played on a good Ottawa team. Like, he really carried them through being last in the league in his second year in Ottawa. So, and that's what earned his 3-year contract at $2.75 million. So that's aging pretty well. Certainly no issues with Anton Forsberg. Would you like an upgrade? Maybe, sure, but no issues with it.
No.
So a few more rumors about the trade. Boston was really pushing for Shane Pinto. And what I find really, really interesting about that is you look at the trade that actually went through. Again, it was Korpisalo, the first round pick, and Mark Kastelik. I don't know if that package is worth as much as Pinto. Like, the cost to dump Korpisalo, I don't know. I think if you put Shane Pinto in there, that's a more valuable asset than those three together.
Yeah, I mean, if was involved in it, I think then you're looking at, okay, that makes sense. And the fact that no real big asset went in this trade, I mean, yeah, first round pick. I mean, you could argue that's a big asset, but I thought there was going to be something else. And a Pinto being involved, Chychrun, I would say, yeah, that would be good. And I don't know. Maybe just Ottawa didn't want to get rid of Pinto. Then I would think that Boston would say, well, no, we can get something better from another team. But I guess they figured this is good.
Yeah, well, and it sounded like it came down to Ottawa was the front runner since the deadline for Ullmark, but Vegas and Detroit were in on the talks too. And like, I just can't wrap my head around the fact that nobody could put a package better than that together.
Yeah, I would think the Red Wings would have been able to put something better, but maybe they wanted a goaltender return.
Yeah, I don't know. But even then, like,
they could have put Alex Lyon in there.
Yeah, or even if you're going with a prospect, like, I don't think people would be too eager about it, but I don't think Sebastian Cossa would be completely off the table if you're acquiring the guy that won the Vezina last year.
No, I mean, again, that wouldn't be a piece that would make sense to me being in this, but
yeah, I don't understand it from the Bruins side at all. Again, that could come back to bite. People kind of were skeptical about the Andrew Raycroft for Tuukka Rask trade, and Boston seems to be good at getting rid of goaltenders that aren't good anymore without the league knowing. So I don't know. I don't expect that Linus Ullmark is just going to suck now. That's just not how it works.
No.
But history shows that that's how it works in Ottawa. So who knows? So in some other trade rumors, the Ottawa Senators and Philadelphia Flyers, we talked about this a bit last week, but it still sounds like they have a bit of a deal in the works. I wonder if that's where Jakob Chychrun is going to land. There's been a lot of rumors about Ottawa moving back to 12th, or maybe not even taking 12th at all and just trading for or trading the 7th overall pick to the Flyers, because the Flyers, it's been public information now for a week or two that the Flyers want to get into the top 10, but would also like 2 top 12 picks. So is there a scenario that Ottawa gets rid of the 7th overall pick without getting the 12th back? I don't know. I think that would take a lot. Maybe it's Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost. I don't know how the cap works with that without looking at their numbers, but the Flyers also have the 32nd overall pick. Is there any other assets you're looking at the from the Flyers that could be of interest to Ottawa?
Well, I mean, you guys mentioned a few names on the last episode. I think, you're looking at guys like Farabee, Konechny. I think I really like that. Konechny coming back to Ottawa. I mean, that's a big piece, obviously. But I mean, Chychrun or Chabot would have to be involved in that. But I mean, now that Chychrun's not in the Ullmark trade, I think he is one of the pieces going back to Philadelphia. And I think over between the two, I think it's Chychrun over Chabot going in there because he's much more manageable contract wise. I think he would fit a bit. I don't know. Chabot probably would fit well in Philly too, but I think Chychrun may fit a bit better in Tortorella's system. So I think you're looking at a guy like Konechny. I don't like the Scott Laughton thing. I mean, I don't think he's that high of a, especially if Chychrun's involved in the trade. You're not getting Laughton back. Maybe one of the pieces, but yeah. I think you're looking at a Konechny, Farabee. Maybe Travis Sanheim. I really like Farabee or Konechny in this one.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the value that a 7th overall pick has. I mean, you just have to look at Ottawa's trade history. It's Alex DeBrincat. Right. We don't see. It wouldn't be a surprise to see someone like Travis Konechny get moved for the 7th overall pick, and a couple other assets or whatnot. But like you mentioned, their defense. I don't think it's going to be Thomas Chabot going that contract. No. Like you mentioned, it's just so much harder to move. And yeah, I don't know. They don't have the pieces that Ottawa really needs right now outside of Konechny and Farabee. And you mentioned Scott Laughton. When I heard in the season that the asking price for Scott Laughton was a 1st-round pick, I don't know if I was drinking something, but I would have spit it out if I was. It was like, I don't understand the hype at all. He's a good third liner. He's an average third liner. Like, he's a 35, 45 point guy. He's physical. He's terrible defensively. Like, there's so many players that fit that bill. Like, I would even just look at what Edmonton has. Like, I would rather bring in Warren Foegele than, like, I don't know. I don't get the hype at all. And people are saying that he has so much value. Don't understand it. Ottawa could find so much better in free agency.
Laughton, I've never really, like, there's been talk about him being traded to the Canucks at points too. And it's like, and it's always a 1st-round pick. And I'm like, he's not worth a 1st-round pick. I don't get it either. I mean, he was good for a bit there. It seemed like he had a bit more upside, but he's kind of fallen off. And now he is that middle 6 guy. I mean, not worth a 1st-rounder for sure.
Yeah, there's going to be some movement in Ottawa's kind of middle 6 or bottom 6, depending on how you look at things. Matthew Joseph is expected to be traded before the draft, and we're just counting down the hours now until draft day. So it seems like they're trying to move Joseph to bring in Brandon Tanev. It's not going to be a trade for each other, but I think it's fine. I don't really have an opinion on that kind of movement because I think that's just a change of personnel rather than upgrade or downgrade. The contract is pretty similar, 3.5 for Tanev and 2.95 for Joseph. Joseph has the extra year, of course. I don't really understand it other than bring Brandon Tanev in to be a convincing piece to bring in Chris Tanev in free agency. If that's the plan, I'm fine with that, but I don't know. It's whatever. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think I agree. I think it's a lateral move. I think you're bringing in same for same. I mean, yeah, I think maybe Brandon Tanev is a bit more physical and a bit more of that energy guy, but I think the biggest thing is to say, come, get Brandon to recruit Chris to come over to Ottawa or wherever. But even then, I mean, would he? I mean, I'm not really sure on family things. It's like, well, why didn't he go and sign in Seattle then? When right
Yeah,
when he was a free agent last time, because Brandon was there when he was, I believe he was there.
yeah, he would have been.
Yeah. So I mean, it I don't know if it's as big of a thing. I mean,
That's a really good point.
right?
Yeah. Um. So yeah, that's something that could happen. Keep an eye on that, but at this point, until something starts to happen, I'm not too focused on that. But back to some Jakob Chychrun talks. There does seem to be a couple of other teams linked, including the Florida Panthers, Vegas Golden Knights, and Nashville Predators. Um, Pretty interesting teams. It's Jakob Chychrun seemed really excited to leave the West and the
Yeah.
South. He was happy to go to Ottawa. He was happy to be there, obviously, with his grandfather around. Um, he played really good. He just doesn't fit in Ottawa. So I wonder, he was born in Florida and grew up there partly. I wonder if there's a fit there. There's some questions about Brandon Montour. He's still unsigned, pending unrestricted free agent. Is there any assets from Florida that you look at that could come back for Ottawa?
Yeah, Florida's an interesting one because they've got some, of course, some issues to deal with themselves with like you say with Montour. I would assume they want to re-sign Sam Reinhart. That's going to cost a lot of money. Bringing in a guy like Chychrun with that money, are you replacing to make saying, well, we want to replace Montour with Chychrun because that's what you're doing because you're going to have to sign
Yeah.
Montour to a lot of money too. And they do got some. I'm not sure about pieces though. I mean, the Panthers have they for what you'd be getting for them. Are you looking at Anton Lundell in there? I mean, he's restricted free agent. That's going to cost a lot of money for Florida too. They may have to trade him. They may have to trade his rights. I would like Lundell. I think he'd be a great guy. He's looking like a mini Alexander Barkov at this point, and I think I'd actually target him if you're going in that trade.
Yeah, I'm a huge Anton Lundell fan, and I completely agree. The rumored asking price for Chychrun right now is a first round pick plus a second round pick or a high end prospect. I'm sure they would be more than happy to take Lundell back in a trade if that's what it came down to. Before yesterday, I would have said Spencer Knight to be part of that trade. He's as of yesterday when they won the Stanley Cup, Spencer Knight's basically dead cap to them. He's making $4.5 million and didn't play in the NHL. Um, so it's really interesting to see kind of what teams have to offer. Same as the Nashville Predators. Like there's nothing really standing out unless you're going after Luke Evangelista, or if you're just going for picks and prospects. I don't know. There's so many possibilities when you have a player as good as Jakob Chychrun making only 4.6 million,
Yeah.
and teams that are in the position of Florida, where they just won the Stanley Cup. I know that was the second biggest news yesterday, after the Ullmark trade. Um, but they just won the Stanley Cup. They have so many free agents. They don't have a ton of money. Generally, their cap situation is pretty good. They're going to have a hard time this summer, and can Ottawa take advantage of that and say, listen, like you can have this guy, kind of like you were talking about, a replacement for Brandon Montour. You can have Jakob Chychrun, and he's making half of what Brandon Montour would be.
Mhm.
And we can even retain a little bit if we have to.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. I mean, Montour is going to be what, 8 million? I
Yeah.
mean, that's probably what he's going to cost. And you get Chychrun. I mean, arguably he's not as good as Montour, especially how he's been in Florida the last few years. But I think he'd be a good replacement. I mean, he probably won't bring as much offense as Montour has lately, but he is that good two-way defenseman. I mean, obviously, I say two-way, and probably a Senators fans. He wasn't good defensively, but I mean, yeah, before he was. I mean, it seems like that's what he is, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like he fits in Ottawa, and I think that's probably why he hasn't played as well. Um,
Yeah.
could he be better in Travis Green's system? Maybe, but I think he's probably getting traded, so probably won't find out.
Yeah. I will say that Jakob Chychrun did outscore Brandon Montour last year, but did play 15 more games.
Yeah,
So
Montour was injured, I think, for a bit of last season, right? So
yeah, he missed the start of the season
yeah,
after surgery after last playoffs.
but he had 70 plus points last season, or yeah, previous season.
Yeah, it's really interesting because is he the 40-point guy he's been on pace for two of his seasons in Florida, or is he a 75-point guy that he was last year?
It's
It's
tough to figure.
yeah.
Yeah.
But do you look at Jakob Chychrun and say he can bring similar things to what Montour has brought in 2 of his 3 years here? Or do you say, I'm going to take a big bet on Montour and say, I hope you're a 70-point guy again?
Could be just a flash in the pan. Everything kind of went right for him that season. I don't think he's a 70 plus point defenseman. I think he's a 50, 45, 50 point guy. But I don't know. I think the injuries definitely derailed that last season, even though it was only 15 games. But when you can't start a season and get on that role that he did in the last season, I think that could still throw a wrench in things. And yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, it's more than 15 games. It's preseason, it's training camp,
all
it's
that. Yeah.
just getting up to speed with everything. So, yeah, no, I completely agree. But what about the Vegas Golden Knights? That's kind of the last talking point that we're going to have is if Jakob Chychrun is going to Vegas, what would you like to see come back?
The one thing about Vegas is like they're again, they're a team that's really cash strapped. I mean, they probably won't be able to re-sign Marchessault. Obviously they probably want to. Uh Defense, I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at Shea Theodore at this point. I mean, they've got some really good depth defensively. Yeah, Theodore's got some, he's a pretty expensive defenseman too, but I would really like to see Shea Theodore in Ottawa. I think he'd be really good. And there has been talk about him being on the block. I don't know if that's an overpay for Chychrun, because he's obviously, I think Theodore's a much better defenseman than Chychrun is. But I'd be looking at a guy like that. I don't think Ottawa should be looking at prospects or picks for Chychrun. I think getting a guy that's going to play and either replace him or get a forward or something. But for me, I'd be looking at Theodore.
Yeah, I think Ottawa would definitely have to be adding to that trade.
For sure. Yeah.
But I think that if they could target Shea Theodore to play on the right side, they would be laughing. And even if like they can make some sort of huge deal and end up sending Forsberg for Thompson as well, just change of scenery for both goaltenders, really. Yeah, I think that there could be a trade there. And then they have some forwards like Paul Cotter. Wouldn't mind
Yeah.
seeing him come over in the trade. He was pretty solid on the fourth line. And Ottawa has a couple empty spots there now. Brett Howden, Keegan Colasar. These are like some quality players that Ottawa could really be targeting and could really upgrade their bottom six.
Yeah. I like those ones. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think, like I say, Theodore's a way better defenseman than him. I think you're gonna have to add something to it
Yeah.
to get him. But it seems like he's on the block. I mean, obviously, there are gonna be other teams involved in that too, because I mean, he's a great defenseman. But they got to shed cap, especially if they have to. They want to re-sign some of their guys that are coming up. And Marchessault seems like that they're obviously want to get him back because he's been great for him.
Yeah, I mean, he won the Conn Smythe. Yeah, how much better can you really be?
Right?
If I had to make, since it's silly prediction season, if I did have to make a prediction, Shea Theodore will be traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs for Mitch Marner.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I picture.
I don't want it. I
Um,
don't want Marner in this division, but whatever.
yeah, that would be interesting. But that's gonna wrap things up for this episode. A little bit of a shorter show. We're gonna be doing a full Senators mock draft. Dayton and I next or later this week, I guess it'll be up on the day of the draft. We're gonna go through all that. There's a whole bunch of draft content on the YouTube channel. Make sure to go check all that out, and we'll see you next time.